Good morning. Boy, I have the world's loudest air conditioner.
Good morning.
Ah, good morning, everybody. Hello. So, I hope you enjoyed the long weekend. I made my first forays out into the world, and it scared the daylights out of me. Now I want to go climb back in the cave and, wear a mask or a plastic bag maybe over my entire body. I don't know. I've been outside, and there's so many people who are like, "Yay, it's all over." No, it's not. Don't breathe on me. It's unbelievable. Really, it's just bizarre. All right. In any case, here we are. So, folks, I want to tell you what's going on. We're really kind of entering in the last lap of the class, which ends not this Thursday but next Thursday. So, that's pretty soon. And what we have left for us is 90% of it is animation. I want to give you a taste of this thing called P5. And, I always reconfigure exactly where to put it. In fact, today might have been a better day than my original plan, but since I already told everyone we were going to start animation today, I'm going to stick with that plan. By the way, just since I'm mentioning it, the two subjects, we're going to talk a lot about animation today and actually make an animation or, get started today. P5 is a programming language, but it's common with artists. And it's also capable of making things move. So even when we do P5, we're going to be doing a little tiny bit of program style animation because there's more than one way to make things move. But I don't think I'm going to spend more than one day on that, maybe two. I don't know. So what I want to do, though, right now is first let me check my chat as I do. Good morning. People out in chat land, everybody here, YouTube people. Let me share my screen just so we could jump in. I'm going right to the desktop optional, obviously. And here we are. First off, I want to go over this cleanup stuff. Again, since it's that close to the end of the semester. So let's take a look. I updated Blackboard last time. Hang on a second. This does not look up to date. All right, that's okay. It's up to date enough. On the 18th, right? So this is the 23rd. That's 5 days ago. So I know some of you put stuff in the night of the 18th and since the 18th. Also, some of you guys handed in the videos early. So I just want to say, don't be alarmed if you handed in anything after the 18th. I'm going to get to it this week for sure, but I have not done any grading since then. So the class 4 assignment was already graded, but I did invite people who owed me late work. I took a peek this morning. I saw a few wise people who'd missed that assignment, took advantage of it. I want to say that's about the class 4 assignment. So we're talking about 12 classes ago. So I just want to say real quickly, when I teach in the classroom, I wouldn't accept an assignment that late. The whole idea is this very structured, very mature way of doing things. But this is the new world now where we're not necessarily in real time. The core group here is taking the class real time. But as you know, there's a lot of other people taking this class right now in a different kind of time. So I have opened that door to late assignments, right? So again, last time I'm going to mention it. If you haven't done it, do it, right? If yours has been put in since the 18th, I'll grade it this week and check Blackboard for all things grade-wise. About the midterms are the slowest thing a teacher's ever going to take late, but I had the same invitation this semester, and I'm not even lowering grades or anything like that for things that are late. I know a couple of you reached out to me as individuals. I took a peek. John, if you're curious, I saw that yours is there. Didn't get to look at it though.
Okay.
By the way, I don't usually know by heart, so don't everybody start asking me, did you get mine? Did you get this? I happened, it's like the last thing I saw this morning before I came up so I happened to remember it. So check Blackboard if you've not put in anything new. since the 18th, and it'll be up to date. If you put in stuff after the 18th, just wait a little bit for that one grade to come in. If you're on schedule, both of these have already been graded. I want to say something about the class 15 assignment, and no one should worry about this at all. Your teacher made a goofy error, which was, for whatever reason, the handout said class 4. First name, last name, .mp4. That's what it said to hand in. So I got a whole bunch of class 4s. I'm like, what is that? I quickly realized the fault was mine. Luckily, they're all MP4s, videos. So it took me a glance to gather them all up. I'll show you what I mean. Have a look. So I took all the videos that were already handed in. You know, this is a personal project, Jeremy's. But I put all the ones that are the project itself. And I put them in this class 15 video project. So your stuff's in here. Let me get in there for a minute. Hang on. Flash player is getting excitable. Go away. There we go. Why does this not want to open? Give me 1 second here. My Google stuff's been real slow today. All right, I don't want to waste your time on this. I don't know what's up with Google. But really all I'm trying to say is, if you already handed your video in, don't worry about it. Don't rename it and hand it to me again. I already took care of it. All the videos I got, you're covered. I haven't graded them, but you're covered. Anybody who hasn't done the video yet, it's on the class 15 handout. I corrected the class 15 handout just this morning. Let me just get a quick look. And this is still, what is going on today? There it is, the updated. So this is what it should have been named. If any of you handed in already, don't worry about it, just forget about it. If you haven't handed in the video yet, you'll look at the class 15 handout, which is now corrected. This is the correct name. I suppose that's all obvious, but does anybody have a question about that one? The video project?
This is due on Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
It's due on Thursday. And look, guys, you know, I don't like to harp on it because I don't want people who don't need extra time to fall behind. But, you know, the same rules apply. I'm giving people a real kind of large berth around the due date. You know, so anybody who needs that extra time can take it. I don't want anything after the last day of class. But now we're getting so close that people who are behind need to catch up. John, do you have a question?
No, Professor.
Your box lit up.
Maybe feedback.
Feedback. Well, you need feedback on the video specifically, you're saying?
No, because I have the audio coming out the laptop.
That kind of feedback. I got you. Hey, are any of you old enough to remember this show called Hollywood Squares? No, I'm the old one. There were 9 boxes. It was a tic-tac-toe board. Jeremy remembers that.
Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, I remember that show.
You do? It looked like Zoom, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It did actually.
There were 9 celebrities, you know, and you'd ask them questions, and if you won, you got either an X or a no. It was just tic-tac-toe, but celebrity had to figure out a question for you. I keep thinking that. Anyway, so let me get back to today's handout, make sure I don't forget anything. I'm very excited about today's material. So let me get back to class 16. All right. Now notice here, I mentioned the last project because it's a 4-project semester, the animation assignment, right? And the date's yet to be announced, right? So we're gonna have a couple days of animation before I actually give you that assignment, which the actual final project. So I don't really have any answers because there's no reason to ask questions yet, other than there's one more project coming. So let me move on. So today we're beginning with Adobe Animate, which is the last software package that we need for this particular semester. And you know what just dawned on me? So you know what, I'm kind of glad I didn't arrange the order. I think our Adobe is ending the free window for the Creative Cloud Suite like July 3rd or something like that. So that basically means I better give that project a little earlier than I expected to make sure that everybody has time to do it. Let me take myself a big note about that. That's such an odd one that, you know, it never would have occurred to me to be a problem. I need to take a note to make sure that I make sure we have enough time to do it. It does mean though, there's not going to be late work for anyone, unless you happen to be paying for the Creative Cloud Suite. I'm just taking a note. So I guess I'm going to be giving a lot of alerts about the necessity of that once I give the actual assignment. I definitely want to give people at least a few days for it. Okay. I want to just say something since it's sort of come up. You know, this class has a very wide variety of majors. There's a few majors that it's required for, and a bunch of other people taking it for personal interests, or just burning some gen ed credits, I guess, for them. But those of you who are loving this stuff, and particularly people going into any of the fields that involve Adobe software, keep in mind that in July, to be able to practice, to do your work, to become excellent, you're going to have to start paying for the Creative Cloud Suite. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the price. It's somewhere between $7 and $20 a month. But if you do choose to do that, be sure that you do it as a student. The price is much, much lower. You know, when you go to, you know, and if I think of it, if I can make the time for it, I'll gather some information for people before the end of the class to give them a head start. It's not too expensive, but it's a year contract. Okay, let me move on. So I'm hoping that with last week's alerts that everybody went ahead and got themselves Adobe Animate CC. And I want to say a little bit about that. First off, Adobe Animate used to be Adobe Flash. Just getting that out of the way. And before Flash, there was Adobe Director. So there's kind of a heritage, a dynasty going on of this particular line of Adobe products devoted to animators. So I just want to say a little bit about it, and I'm going to try to keep it relatively short. The first big one was called Director, and it was really belonged to a company called Macromedia. Macromedia was really duking it out with Adobe, which was much larger, rather famous, and Adobe didn't like it, so they bought them out. And Adobe has a history of doing that. They either destroy or buy the competition. Obviously, I don't like that kind of thing because the competition pushes us all forward and they just sort of eliminate it. But Macromedia was when you guys were really young. Most of you were really, really young because the deal then was all about DVDs. So if you wanted interactivity, you got a DVD. The internet was too slow. It just didn't have what we had for DVD. That basically means everyone in here probably knows who Leonardo da Vinci is. You know, painted the Mona Lisa, but he's just as famous for all these cool inventions that he made, right? So say you wanted to watch an interactive presentation on Da Vinci. So if it was cool enough, an animation of an old Italian man from the Renaissance era walked out with his long beard, you know, and then you'd hear, you know, operatic music in the background. Maybe you'd see his strange handwriting show up a minute later because he wrote backwards rather strangely. And then you'd start seeing maybe diagrams of all his objects coming out. Very multimedia, what I'm describing to you, right? But maybe they'd have video after that of people who actually built things in the 20th or 21st century based on those old drawings. So you'd have video, you'd have animation, you'd have text, you'd have audio. Then you're like, oh, I don't really want to see the inventions. I want to see the paintings. So the Mona Lisa's behind Leonardo. You click the Mona Lisa, and now the presentation shifts. So that would have been the first interactive decision. You know, you're clicking the painting because you don't want to see the inventions. So that was all driven by Macromedia Director. By the way, it paid at least $50 an hour for anyone who could use it at that time. And it involved some programming in a language called Lingo. But when the internet started to get hot, right? So let's say, wild guessing, maybe 20 years ago, right? So some of you guys were babies, a couple of you weren't born. Some of you remember this, right? 20 years ago. We were like, wow, people don't want the discs anymore. So Macromedia tried to get Director to work online, to do the same thing on websites. They tried real hard, and they created something called the Shockwave file, .swf. And strangely, we're still using the .swf, because when Macromedia realized Director wasn't going to work, they came out with Flash. And the world changed on the internet with Flash. Everything changed. Flash also made .swfs. And then Adobe bought Macromedia. Now, a lot of you guys know what happened to Flash, but I need to say this for people who haven't. Everybody's heard of Flash, I'm assuming, you know. But believe it or not, people a little younger than you haven't, to be honest, you know, because it died. And this is why. One, Flash had a programming language built in called Actionscript. And I loved Actionscript. Actionscript was one of the children of JavaScript. So it was very much like JavaScript. So you were able to be an animator, say doing a rocket ship scene with asteroids, and you, with programming, with ActionScript, you were able to program the user's keyboard so they could move the rocket ship in between the asteroids. Gaming. And you could even program it that if they blew it and the rocket ship hit the asteroid, it would skip to an animation of an explosion. This is typical video game stuff, right? But if you wrote bad programming, right? Something like check the score, and if it keeps checking the score every second, the RAM of that visitor's computer was busy checking the score. And if you asked it to check something else, and something else, the whole thing would be overheating. You'd literally feel laptops get hot, fans would go off. That was problem one, bad programming. Problem two was evildoers putting viral material in the SWF files, the .swf files. So Flash became the bad guy. It was like, oh, everyone was afraid of viruses because of Flash. So Steve Jobs went first, the guy from Apple, and said, Apple's not supporting Flash anymore. I got to say something to you guys as a multimedia person. Some of you guys are multimedia majors. That used to mean Flash and other stuff. That's what multimedia meant for a few years there. Flash and other stuff. Because you could bring your videos into Flash, like we just did in making the videos in Premiere, or your sound from Audacity or elsewhere. You brought it all into Flash. But between the viruses and the bad programming, once Apple went down and said, we're not going to do it. Now, my website was all in Flash, and I was popular. It was so good for me. And then suddenly, students were like, hey, it doesn't show on my iPhone. And to make matters worse, it didn't even say not supported. It just went white. You know, a big war started between two companies that had always gotten along, Adobe and Apple. So I'm going to make this short. Android followed, said no more Flash, and then everybody followed, no more Flash. They just made the announcement that the Flash player is not going to be supported after December. So that means even the old stuff probably won't work at all. That's just the player. So what happened? Everybody scrambled. There was about 6 months to a year where there was half as much animation online. And I'm talking only 4 years ago. All the ads started using photos again instead of animated ads. The gaming world sort of backed up a little bit, online that is only, and it was bad. So Adobe realized, man, we should have been on this before. So while they were busy fixing Flash, its name got so bad that even when they'd fixed all the problems, you couldn't use it because everyone's like, nah. So they did a brilliant thing. They made it far, far better, and they renamed it Adobe Animate. Now, Adobe Animate doesn't have the problems Flash had. So that's good news. And what's the even better news is everyone started to realize that there was more than one industry who'd been using Flash. So let's stop for 1 second. It was famous as a multimedia web design tool. You were able to make whole websites in Flash, or just movies, you know, animated movies in Flash. But what people weren't publicizing was Family Guy, the TV show, was using Flash. South Park was mostly in Flash. The list is very long. Blue's Clues. Again, I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember Blue's Clues. Flash, 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 flash. So when Adobe Animate came out, they were like, you know what? Let's give the web designers a break and focus on what video people and TV animators and feature-length movie animators want. And they made a far superior program. That's the program we're going to be learning, Adobe Animate. So I want to say a couple things about it. And again, you could always turn on your mic. The in-class group isn't that large. What do we got? 15 people today. This is bigger than usual. Feel free to turn on your mic or even chat me if you want to interrupt with a question. Let me just get a quick, my chat keeps disappearing on me. There we go. So where are we at now? The program's at its most amazing. And because it's made by Adobe, it plays especially nice with the other Adobe products, like Premiere, but most specifically like Adobe After Effects. So I want to say something to everybody in here that's interested in animation for any reason. After Effects is one of the most popular ones this year. I don't know about last year or next year, but this year, Adobe After Effects. And it's used a lot with imported elements. So you import your artwork either from Adobe Animate, or maybe from another drawing program like Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop for that matter. So it works with a lot of imported stuff. A lot of those TV shows you watch that have really cool intros, Game of Thrones was outstanding, for example, in that one way. A lot of them are using Adobe After Effects. I've talked to a lot of people who use the two programs together. Adobe Animate focuses on drawings mostly, though it could work with lots of other things. 2D animation, right? And it's incredibly powerful. When it comes to just 2D animation, I would say After Effects, Adobe Animate. Another name you hear a lot is Toon Boom. Has anyone heard of Toon Boom? So I got to admit, I'm on the fence about Toon Boom because I haven't used it, but it's also very, very popular, but it comes at a bill. You know, it's not free. They have 3 or 4 versions, so it's very confusing. I think 3. But they get increasingly expensive, and the learning curve is steeper than it is in Adobe Animate. So I don't know what the future is as these programs duke it out to see who's going to be king. I think Animate has that one advantage that the same crowd already has the Creative Cloud suite. So it's, in a sense, they've already paid for the whole suite. So they all have access to Adobe Animate. I think it's a fantastic program, and that's what we're going to hit. I do want to say a couple things more before we try it. Today's the big intro, but also a lot of hands-on. Hey guys, I'm going to turn on my ridiculously loud air conditioner. Could you be honest and tell me if you're having a hard time hearing me? You know, because I'll survive. I'm more worried about you hearing me. This thing's ridiculously loud. Can you hear me? I'm just kidding. Can you hear me? I'm all right? All right, please don't be shy if it's like ridiculous because it's getting louder. All right, so I want to say just a little bit more about 2 terms that I really want you to understand. I'm talking about this right here on my handout, animation versus motion graphics. And I really want to be crystal clear about this issue because young creatives get confused. When someone says animation nowadays, they usually mean character animation. So when we're talking about TV, we're talking about character animation. But let's say you're watching the news. And you know, let's say the news is switching from one anchor person. Oh yeah, terrible things happen in the world today. Now the weather, right? And then what happens? Maybe you see a graphic of the planet Earth spin. And maybe you see some arrows shoot by. Some animated clouds go, whoa, you know, whatever. An umbrella pop open, you know. But it's just animated graphics, right? Those are called motion graphics. One of the biggest differences between animation and motion graphics is usually motion graphics don't talk. There's no mouths. In fact, usually there's no legs, so there's no characters. Nobody's walking and talking. The most common kind of motion graphics is kinetic type, which, by the way, is going to be the final assignment. Kinetic type is moving letters and moving words. So even if you're watching TV and a commercial comes on and they're selling the newest car, so maybe the car is live action video, you know, an actual camera, car goes by, but then text comes out and it says something like this. Maybe it fades in and it says 0 to 60 in 1 minute. You know, the text comes from the back, 0 to 60. And then maybe across the side it says safety features. And then you read it and it goes, you know, and all the features, 1, 2 features, 3 features, 4, text, text, text. That's everywhere. That kind of animation is everywhere. There's not even a single commercial you're likely to see today that doesn't have some animated text. So that's the #1 form of motion graphics. It's not a character. So I'll usually call animation character animation. So what about what we're going to learn? To be honest with you, character animation would take more than a couple of classes. Anybody who's taken 2D animation with me in the fall, unless the school changes the agenda because of the virus, I don't want to comment on that right today, but if it's the typical class, we're headed right for character animation in that class. We start with simple graphics and then move eventually to people talking, you know, literally syncing with audio, as well as people walking. It's called a walk cycle. People turning around, it's called a turnaround, and all the things basic animation skills. So that would all be character animation stuff the 2D animation class focuses on. We're going to start mostly with motion graphics because it's doable and you can figure out how you feel about it. So listen, guys, before I move on, look, I don't mean to be tedious. You can still hear me all right?
Yeah.
Grade doesn't go down if you say no. Okay, good. All right. So, Faik, you got your computer. That's
Yeah, Professor, I just got it.
fantastic.
I'm working on it now. Actually, I just wanted to show you my midterm too, because I had a few questions about it.
Right, we'll have to do
And
that
that's
after
why-
class, though.
Yeah, sure. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
But we could do it at noon. No doubt about it. So
Okay.
congratulations, though. I got
Thank you.
used to you as a voice. It's like, well, you know, he's physical like the rest of us. I saw Andy poke himself in there for a while, too. Well, there you are. All right. So listen, everybody. Let's launch Adobe Animate CC, right? So I know everybody in here has themselves set up a little bit differently. Last time I saw you, I wanted to point this out. A lot of people who have the Creative Cloud app have it showing up here. I don't know if Windows is something similar. In other words, I'm pointing right to the very top of my computer where there's this symbol that looks like a keychain. It's supposed to be 2-letter C. And if I click it, it opens up the Creative Cloud app. You know, of course, if you don't have that, one could search on their own computer or go to your applications folder and search Creative Cloud. Now, you might have already made yourself a shortcut for this one, Adobe Animate. But if you're in the Creative Cloud app, just click here. Otherwise, just find the program, Adobe Animate, and open it. I don't know why, mine keeps asking me for a font. I just skip it. I don't know why it thinks I need that font. Now, once you've got it open, you see this splash page. And you got kind of used to this because Photoshop had the same kind of splash page, and Premiere also had the same kind of splash page. And it's not just Adobe that does it. And you know, I'm warming up to this. I have a little prejudice against it based on outdated times. It helps you if you're opening something old, or if you want to create a new one. But I'm in the habit of doing it in the way a lot of professionals will, which is from the File menu. So I'm going to ignore this window and go right to the File menu and do File menu New. It's the same as clicking Create New. I need to say a little bit about some important decisions, right? First off, you'll realize it's got a few different presets available in terms of size, and the sizes are wildly different. This is 640 by 480, and to give you a rough idea, when we were doing Photoshop, let's say right at the end of Photoshop, we started preparing images just before the midterm, and we were making a lot of them 400 pixels by 400 pixels. So that means this one here is a little bit taller, but like 50% wider. Why would you use it? Well, maybe you're making an animation. You want to put it on a web page, you know, with text around it. So you don't want it to be too big. Next to it, you see a full high def size and another high def size. So these are both popular sizes right now. And I got to tell you, later on, if you're going into feature length animation, you'd have to talk to your team. What size do we want? Maybe this massive size here will get popular. It's not that popular yet because we don't really have screens that big, but it's hard to say what's going to come up. We're going to stick with 640 by 480 for a few reasons. One, small sizes make small files, which makes computers faster. So I don't want to work with huge sizes right now when we're all on different computers. We're going to stick with 640 by 480. You could put in custom sizes here, and I will often do that if I'm making animation for the web, because the web doesn't care. All right, the TV cares. There's certain shapes for TVs, but for the web, as long as it's smaller than a browser. I wanted you to ask you a question about the frame rate. Is your frame rate 24?
Mine's at 30.
Yours at 30? So this is really interesting to me because I downloaded this morning the newest Adobe Anime to be sure that I don't have anything behind the times. And I expected it to say 30. So let me say a few words about this. This is important. If you're going to hand draw an animation, which I got to be honest, most of you are not going to want to do, right? This means 24 drawings per second. That means if you did 30, you got 25% more work. Yeah, 25% more work, right? More drawings. You don't want 30. I want to say something else about that for people into video. Hey, wasn't there a frame rate in video? Yeah, and there's arguments even in video, and it's usually between 24 versus 30. So listen to this. In my career, this started at 12. And why? Why would you ever do 12 drawings in a second? Well, it's about the minimum that still looks like an animation, but it doesn't look too good. It looks a little like that. It's supposed to like that. Now you're thinking, hey, well, what does a Disney do? You know, does Disney use 30? You know, I honestly don't know. But my experience is 24, to me, looks better than 30. So a lot of art movies, for example, even with actors, set the cameras to 24. And in fact, most of Europe has their camera set to 24. So here's my opinion. A lot of us think 24 looks better. It doesn't look artificially sharp like 30 can look. And it's less work. That's nice. All right, so this is what I'm asking you to do. Can you make sure your width is 640, your height is 480, and your frame rate says 24? Before we go one step further, I just want to mention this. These are the two platforms, they're calling it, that they're pushing on people lately. And I want to say a little bit about the choice. Folks, this is a little boring, but if you're going into multimedia or web design or animation, I just give me extra attention. If you're liberal arts or something else, hear me out anyway. Actionscript 3 is the platform type we're going to use. And the reasons are, it has better audio features, which is nice. You could control left and right speakers and volume. So I like that. Also, it has a lot of output types. So bear with me for 1 second. I'm talking about export. So we've been doing a lot of exporting. In Photoshop, we started with PSDs, or we made layered PSDs, but we exported JPEGs. But Photoshop exports 20 or more file types. architects want something else, and 3D artists want something else, and everybody wants a different file type. Well, Adobe Animate's like that. You could export many kinds of file types, more than these two. But what I like about this one is it gives me a lot of choices. I can make GIF animations. I could make videos, MP4 videos, or MOV QuickTime videos. My export options are huge. So I actually find this one favorable. I just want to mention something about this one. Adobe loves talking about this one, like we should all be doing this, but I disagree. What is HTML5 Canvas? So bear with me for a second. You guys have learned a lot of HTML. And yes, it is part of the same HTML you learned. But what it is an incredibly difficult, in my opinion, elaborate way to make animation in code. So what Adobe Animate does is it lets you see what you're animating and it tries to write the code for you. That sounds pretty good. That does sound really good. But once you try to put that animation on the web, it involves all kinds of files and folders. It has a lot of parts and it's really difficult to manage. So I've done a lot of this and I gotta say I've begun to lead against it. This semester, we're gonna focus on Actionscript 3 every time. That's not the programming language. They should really change the name because it's scaring people, because we're not gonna use the programming language, but this is what they're calling the platform now, because it's the most flexible. All right, let's move on. This is what we're looking for. 640 by 480, 24 frame rate, Actionscript 3. Please click create. Now, what you're looking at here in the middle is called the stage. This is off stage to the left and off stage right, top, bottom, and we actually want to see around the stage. So I like this particular zoom level. I do want to point something out and I'd like you to join me on this. Up here is your current zoom. And if you click on it, you could go down to any number that it offers. Or you could highlight it and type in a number and hit return or enter. You can go down by ones. This is new. I like this. So I'm just going to say a quick word about it. You're going to want to zoom in and out a lot. Command plus and Command minus works in every program, but it works poorly in this one. This is what that looks like. Here's Command or Control minus, and it just goes too fast. So I don't know why they set it up that way, but you're going to need this mostly. All right. On the left are all of our tools. And I think I need to do something like we did in Premiere. I want to check that we're all set the same way so that I'm not using tools that you don't see, right? It's going to be a little complicated because I use this program a lot and I've already added a lot of tools. So let's see how it goes. Could you join me? I'm going to try to make this as uniform as possible. Could we all go to the window menu? So you're in Adobe Animate, and along the top, you see the window menu. And what we're looking for is Workspaces. We've seen this in other Adobe products. And the workspace I'm going to use is called Essentials. And I'm going to actually click Reset Essentials because I've customized mine. And I want to see if it's any different. Are you sure? I'm not really sure, but I'll say I am. Yes. All right, it doesn't look like much changed. Folks, you're going to have to give me a heads up if I mention a tool and you don't have it. Right? This program's changed a lot in the last few years. Okay. So on the left are the tools. On the right is this thing called the Properties Palette. Now I want to hit the ground running. So here's the first thing. This program does the most with drawings. And they're called vector drawings. And some of you know what that is and some of you don't. But I'm going to explain it to everybody today because we're going to do a little. Vector drawings are most famous from Adobe Illustrator. So people who use this program, teams will often have an expert or two who could also use Adobe Illustrator. But as it turns out, this program's gotten so good at drawing that I wouldn't be surprised if people start to use it as an illustration tool. I can't believe how it's grown up, and I've been using it since it came out. So let's try some weird stuff together before we make things move. All right, on the left, I want you to seek out this particular tool that looks like a rectangle, and I want you to click on it. What I would also like you to do, however, though, is can you press on that tool? Because I want to show you something. So if you press on it, you can see there's two tools there. One's called rectangle tool, one's called rectangle primitive. This semester, I'm going to ask you not to use the primitive tools. I typically don't, right? Small differences, but they're a bit of a headache. So let's all make sure we're in the regular rectangle tool. I do want to mention that any of your tools that have a tiny triangle underneath it means there are other tools there if you press on it, right? Right now, just take the plain old rectangle tool. Now, what I want you to do with me next is take a look all the way on the right side and notice that there should be a palette called Properties, and next to it a grayed out tab that says Library. We're focusing on the one called Properties. If by any chance you don't see the Properties palette, go to the Window menu. This is where all the palettes live here. You see how my Properties is checked, right? So I just put it away. No big deal. I'll go to the Window menu and check it again. We're going to use this one all the time. So you already choose the rectangle tool on the left. I want you to go to the right and join me in this exact experiment. All right? Could you click on the color for the fill box and pick any color?
Professor,
Yes.
can you just look at my screen? I mean, can you tell me like what will be the frame rate? Because my frame rate is showing me just only 120.
Frame rate. So take a look with me first, right before we start screen sharing. Could you
Okay.
look at the bottom of my screen? Do you see what I'm circling right now? Can you see that? It says 24.00 FPS. Do you see that on your screen?
No,
You don't see this thing at the very bottom?
no.
All right, give me 1 minute. All right, yeah, let me stop my screen share. You're gonna start yours. I'm stopping
Okay.
it. When you start your screen share, please choose desktop when it gives you the options. Don't choose anything else.
Okay. It says host disable attendance screen sharing.
Says what? Oh, did I not? I
Uh,
thought I did. I thought I did, but I did not. No, I did disable it. Want to try that again?
mhm.
Are you guys still seeing my screen?
No.
No, okay.
Now it's saying me the same. Host disable attendance screen sharing.
You may have to log out and log back into Zoom.
So I can just go leave and then I can join back.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't let me screen share either. So
Really?
probably you didn't disable it.
But if you're not seeing my screen, right, that means that I have disabled my screen sharing, right? And you're not seeing my screen.
No, that just means you stopped sharing your screen. You didn't disable it.
Yeah.
I don't have to disable it. I've done this hundreds of times. All I have to do is stop it. You know what? Let me check my options. Give me a second. Maybe they've changed. Zoom just updated. All right, it's a new option. Here we go. Give me one more second. All right. All right.
Yeah, now I
that's
can. Now I can.
Zoom 5. You're right. That's in the other version. I was able to just stop. But I have to look. It was an option. Maybe there's security related. Is it behaving, Saeed?
Yeah, I did. I clicked on desktop and it's shared.
Is it asking you to go to your security preferences?
Yeah.
So do that. And you know, I think one thing myself and my colleagues are going to have to do is we're all going to have to learn all about security preferences. And on day one of any online class, have everybody change them. Because I have no idea what's going on your side. So there's no way for me to tech support it.
So I just have to click on this security privacy on Zoom,
You know
and
what,
then
Faye? If this takes more than one more minute, I'm just going to walk you through it. I'll tell you how to set up the document again.
okay,
It's a very small thing you're asking me. It's not worth 10 minutes
okay,
of the class. So guys, I'm going to screen share again, and I'm going to, for anyone who missed it, right? So give me a second. And guys, I do apologize for the limits of the technology and the limits of your teacher's understanding of it, especially since they've upgraded Zoom in the meantime. It's a security problem that slowed Faik down. All right, I wanted you guys to see something though. If I wanted to close this or open a new one, and Faik, pay close attention, File Menu New, just join me, make a new one, File Menu New. You have to make the decision first. Do you see this on the right? 640 by 480, frame rate 24, right? Actionscript. That's it.
yeah, Professor. There, I'm trying to put 2400 on frame rate, but it's just showing me like 120. That's it.
Oh, you have to
says-
pick a standard. Pick a standard. You see, it
In
says
terms of the
standard.
size you're talking about?
No. I'm just talking about the frame rate.
It says 120?
Saying 120.
Yeah.
Your full HD. You definitely.
man.
I've never heard of 120 frames a
You
second.
could change it if you
Anything.
want.
120 is the max. You have to literally do 24.00.
Just click it and change it.
So Faik, you're telling me you can't change this number.
Okay.
You're saying you
Or
can't.
do I have to fix this width and height first, then I can change after?
Yeah, first pick a standard, then go to the frame rate and put 24.
Try
Over.
that. Like, click this.
This depend on the standard and full HD because it's changed the frames.
Yeah, I want to see if I get it. See, I hit 4K, it says 30. Like HD says 24. Full HD says 24. Standard says 24. This is the only one that says 30. None of them say 120, so I don't even know. It's not even physically possible.
Mine also started at 120, or was it 12.0? I'm
It
not
was
sure, but
12.0.
right.
Which
So
is
you
the
have to
minimum
literally
frame rate.
outline it and put the 24.00.
So Faik, it's not letting you highlight it like this?
Now it's just showing me 30, and I'm just doing it now.
30.00?
Yeah, now it's fixed.
All right. Do you have
Okay.
a hunch what just happened so you could tell me in case someone else has the problem? Do you have an idea what just happened?
I was not putting the dot.
Okay. All right. All right. 24.00. Let's hit
Yeah.
create. All right. I'm going to leave there. All right. All right. So I want to use that as a way to talk about something. Could everybody look at the bottom of Adobe Animate? This is called the timeline. So the 4 features you want to know right now is this: the toolbar on the left, the stage in the middle, on the right side it's properties, but the bottom is the timeline. This looks like Audacity, it looks a little bit like Premiere. But if you notice, if you see these numbers, right over 24 it says 1S. That's 1 second, right? And right over 48 it says 2 seconds. 72, 3 seconds. Each of these boxes is called a frame. Now, I want to show you guys something. Down here at the bottom is the current frame rate. So this is another way to know your current frame rate. It is interesting that it's not letting me change it here, which it used to let us do. So that's a new issue. No big deal, though, right? And what I want to do now is just start drawing. We're going to deal more with frame rate soon enough. Could everyone go back to the rectangle tool on the left side? Now, if your toolbar is shaped differently than mine, right, that doesn't matter at all. Right? Not even a little bit. So you find the rectangle tool, go to the right side. Please click the fill color chip and pick a color. Then you notice beneath it, it says stroke. I don't want any stroke right now. So I'd like you to click on that color. And I need for you to see this. This little mark here means no color. Color of none. I need for you to click it. It should be in here where everyone would find it, but it's a bad interface design in this case. I want you to find it here, color of none. So you just chose a fill color for your rectangle, simply draw a rectangle. I want you to draw a few just to see what it feels like. Press and drag, different shapes, and see how quickly the program draws with rectangles. Now I'm imagining that's moving smoothly. Is it behaving?
Yeah.
So like, I'd like you to try some Command Z, right? See how Command Z behaves, because we're going to need it a lot. You're used to Command Z from other programs, or Control Z. So I'm going to click inside here, and it lets me go back. So this program has a lot of Command Zs. I'm not sure how many. I'd estimate about 20 to 25. All right, can everyone make a large rectangle this time? One large one. Now, I want to get a move on, right? So I'd like everyone to get to the black arrow. Now, once you've drawn a shape, the black arrow becomes one of the most powerful tools in the program. Now, if you press on the black arrow, you could see there's two tools there. And these names are old names from when Macromedia owned it. This is really, it's the selection tool and the direct selection tool. This program calls it selection and sub-selection. Can you stay with the black one called selection? I'd like you to go to your rectangle, click a corner and drag it. While you're at it, take another corner and drag it. All right, so we're editing the shape. Now, I want to show you some other crazy things that you could do really easy in this program when you're drawing before you animate. So you could take corners rather easily, and when you go to a corner, you see the cursor turns into a corner cursor. It's got this weird angular mark. Let's see what happens when you, now I want to mention one possible error. If you accidentally click inside, you see those little dots? That means it's selected. Now, this is the only program I know of that selects that way. Those little dots means it's selected. You can't do anything but move it or change its color or delete it, but you can't reshape it. So if you accidentally click inside right now, please just click outside and go back to what you were doing. So in other words, you could reshape it if it's not selected. I want you to try this weirder thing. This is a corner cursor, but if I go between corners, I get a curved symbol right next to my tool. I could press and drag it in or out. I'd like you to try different things on different sides to see what that feels like. Oops, I selected it. So I'm going to Command Z, put it back where it was, click out, try it again.
I just made the Capital One logo.
You'll see you can get even very elaborate because we're only working with one shape right now. We're going to move ahead in about a moment. So one thing I love about this particular program is it's got a very hands-on feel about how you draw. You're talking to someone who loves Adobe Illustrator, and I've been using Adobe Illustrator now for 23 years. So that's years before this program was even born. And yet, I like this. Adobe Illustrator can't do this. I want to show you something even cooler though. Could you press on it? So when you press on it, you could drag it around to relocate it. You could also go back to the properties palette and choose a different fill. But what I'm really looking for is, I just want you to delete it. So just press delete. Now, I want you to go back to the rectangle tool. Now, I want to mention something to all of you. It's irresistible to doodle all over the place. And if you do that, I'll never know. But you're going to have to clear the screen now and then. So if you need to clear the screen, just do Command A, you know, because you got such a big mess. Just do Command A, select it all, and press delete. We used Command A in a few programs by now. All right, this is what I need. Could you go back to the rectangle tool, pick a new fill color for yourself. I definitely want you to be sure that you do not pick a stroke. So if you have a stroke color, please go back to that color chip and find this feature here with the red line. It looks like no smoking. Don't sit here, but it's really no color. We're gonna work with strokes later. Can everybody make this rectangle as close as you can get? I want one tall, wide column a little bit to the left. And then I want you to make a similar one off to the right and try to make it a twin if you can. You know, as similar as you can, by eye though. You got these
Professor.
two. Yes, sir.
We can use as many colors as we want.
Not
Or
for this
just one.
experiment. Good question. I need these to be exactly the same color. It's a good question because this experiment depends on them being the same color. What I'm about to show you, I've nicknamed Additive Drawing. There's Additive Sculpture, and that's when you take two pieces of material and bond them together. So someone who makes metal sculpture usually focuses on additive sculpture. Someone who does stone sculpture uses reductive sculpture. Michelangelo used reductive sculpture. He took pieces off the stone. We're doing additive drawing. Watch this. If I stay with that same fill color and I make sure there is no stroke, like I've been asking, I could bridge the two of them. Now what I'm going to do is start in the middle of one, keep going till I see it, and I'm going to go right into the middle of the next one to make a letter H. I'd like for everybody to join me because I want to prove something about what just happened. I have a feeling one or two of you may know something about Adobe Illustrator, and the two programs are often compared. But in this one way, they're very different. When you've bridged shapes like that of the exact color, you could switch to the black arrow and look what actually happened. If you click on your letter H, the whole thing got selected. Doesn't matter where you click. You could change the color of the entire thing if you want to. What's equally interesting, actually not equally, what's far more interesting is if you deselect it, look how many corners you have now. So you could move these around. You know, frankly, I could change it to a whole other letter if I was doing typography. But that's not really my goal right now. I'm just having some fun, right? So you could take any corner you want and relocate it. If people in here who love cartoons or once did might know that old companies like Warner Brothers, the people who did Bugs Bunny, for example, they almost never had a rectangle. If there was a door even, the door was like wider on the top. You know, they didn't like rectangles. Even if they drew a city, the buildings were never really rectangular. So I love the fact that we made this one shape out of three. Is it working?
No.
It's not working, Andy? Andy, watch this, right? Because I got a hunch of what it is, right? It'll only take me a minute to show you. I'm going to delete mine.
Connecting. One of my rectangles aren't connecting properly.
Right, so watch this. Just delete them, right? That's what I'm going to do. Just delete them. Get your black arrow if necessary, or Command A is even faster, and press delete. The trick is this. To do additive drawing, you need to use one fill color and no stroke. That's the first thing.
How did you get there?
The other thing is this. Don't accidentally use the rectangle primitive tool. That tool is made to stop this from happening. Right? Now, we're not interested in that. I want this tool, the plain old rectangle tool. So if you draw the first one, you draw the second one, don't come close and draw something like that because you might be a pixel off. Start inside one and cross. Make sure they're really bridged. Then go back to the black arrow.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those mistakes everybody's going to make at some point because this is the only program I know of that does this. To be honest with you, Photoshop would act a little like this on one layer if we were just working with color and the marquee tool. But it's not really a drawing program. This one is. Okay, so we all figured out that it's one shape, which gives you the freedom to make any kind of change, which I kind of love. Brings a lot of, oops. I often select by accident. I'll Command Z whenever I need to. But you could also change the straight line, so let's not forget about that option too. That basically gives you the chance, the opportunity to really sculpt what you're doing. You know, really find some personality for your shape. And it goes on and on. I want to do something very related to this, right? Because we are going to do some animation, a little tiny bit today, animation more tomorrow. What about reductive? So, you know, I was saying Michelangelo was famous for stonework, and the only way to do that, especially at the time, was to take parts off. Can we do that? We can. Now, here's where using a different color counts, right? So what I'd like you to do, just for the fun of it, let's switch to a different tool. I want you to find this one. So the oval tool uses the letter O as a shortcut. So even if you're in the wrong tool, you can hit O. The only thing I want you to check is, I don't want the oval primitive tool, this one with the weird little line in it. I just want the plain old oval. Now, Before you draw with it, you have to switch your fill color. So go ahead and get yourself a different fill color. Now, this is not an artistic choice because we're going to delete the next object, right? All you need is a color that's different, any other color, right? All right. So I'd like you to overlap that shape. And while you're at it, overlap it in a couple spots. They could be small and inside. They could be literally overlapping edges. You know, put in 4 or 5 of these things. Now, colors that are the same with no interruption fuse. That's what you did before. They had no wall to separate them and no separate color. But colors that are not the same do this. If you switch to the black arrow, click any of your new shapes and drag it off. You could even click one and just flat out press delete. So what I'm trying to say is, you're making holes. What's interesting about that is it's a method of drawing. People actually build stuff like, you know, a chair or a table is pretty easy to build because they're made of rectangles, right? But if I was going to do an old lamp, for example, I might want one of those cool lampshades that kind of pucker. I could do it numbers of ways. I could change the shape manually because now it's crazy shape. Or I could just make what I've nicknamed the cookie cutter. I don't really care what color the cookie cutter is, as long as it's different than the original. How did that go, everybody? It went all right? I want to show you guys something that we're not going to focus on, but I do want to mention it. Could you delete all but that main shape? You know, you might have to use your black arrow, click those and press delete. I want to mention the white arrow. This program has called it the sub-selection tool. I'm not sure anyone ever actually calls it that, though. They call it the white arrow, typically. So let's go get it. If you press the black arrow, you'll see that it shares that slot with the white one. It looks like it gets its own letter in this program, so you could just press the letter A if you prefer. I'm looking for this. Now, this tool doesn't behave if you click inside of an object, but it does something really interesting if you click on the edge. Could everyone please click a corner? Now, when you click a corner, it's easy to see that they're odd little handles. Let me zoom in a bit. And they're probably this kind of aqua blue. If you press and drag it, that's not a big surprise because the black arrow did the same thing. So far, the only difference between the two tools is the white arrow shows you what you're doing. The black arrow, it depends on pure intuition. The white arrow shows you the details. So to start with the white arrow, one starts on corners because they're easier. But I want to ask you to join me on something. I'd like you to find the biggest curve you have, because I want to point something out. This is a big, smooth curve I've got over here. And if I click on the edge of that curve, I guess I have to click one of its anchors. If you click on an anchor next to that curve, do you see these weird handles that are sticking out? They look like antennas. Hey guys, I want to simplify this. Could everybody join me? I want you to delete that object. So get the black arrow again. Click the object and delete it. I got a better way to show this to you, right? Could everyone join me by making one fairly large rectangle? I'd like you to get your black arrow if necessary to change its color. I'm choosing these light colors that show off the anchor points later. You don't have to do that. But what I want you to do is this. On your rectangle, make one big curve. Don't get complicated yet. I want you to see what the difference is with the white arrow. So I've got something that's 3 straight lines and 1 curve. Can everyone switch back to that white arrow again? If you click a corner point that only has straight lines next to it, there's no surprise. It's just showing you this little blue box, and the name is anchor point. So I want to repeat something about that. anchor points show up in every graphics program, and eventually someone using graphics programs has to learn what they are. When someone says vector program, what they're really telling you is I'm using a program that depends on anchor points. So I'll talk more about vectors later, but what we say in common conversation is it's a program that depends on anchors. So that's easy enough. But the black arrow was able to do the same thing. It just didn't show me those anchor points. So what's the white arrow really for? I'm getting back to it. If you click one of the corners of your curve though, you see these on top. Let me zoom in. These control the curve. So I want to say something. Illustrators must master these. Everybody else would be wise if you're going into any graphics program. Photoshop uses these as the best way to select sharp-edged objects. So if I wanted to select a gorgeous car, you know, some Maserati, because I'm going to take the car out and put it in outer space, like Elon Musk, I need it to be a perfect edge. I would use a tool that allows these, the pen tool and the white arrow. Anyway, here's how they work. So in this program, you click a corner point next to a curve. Then you take the handle that sticks out. And here's the rules of those curve handles. A long one, oops, hang on a second there. Click the corner point. A long handle makes a steep curve. A short handle makes a subtle curve. You want a big one, you make a long handle. Architects use these, and legend has it, the guy who invented it, his name was Bezier, or some people pronounce it Bezier. So they're often called Bezier Curves. He designed airplanes, and he needed perfect curves. All right, so it's long or short. Then you choose which way it points. So watch this. Here's a longer curve pointing to the left, pointing way to the right. Now, the way they really work is you control a curve by using both handles. So to make it perfect. So it's like, what am I after? I don't know. Maybe I want something wacky like that. So one of them points one way and the other points another way. Now, folks, I want to stop for a minute. I don't mind if you play with this while I'm talking to you. This isn't going to be a drawing class. So what we're going to do is just a little bit of the basics of how color behaves and how objects behave. And then we're going to move right to motion. The thing is, to make things move, you have to know a little bit about drawing in this program. So I just want to say a quick word just to animators in the room. A lot of animators like to draw, and some don't. One of the most famous animators hated to draw. His name was Hillman, his last name. Can't think of his first name right now. And so what did he do? Well, he found other ways to animate with collaged photographs or making other people do the drawing, and he'd do the animation. He got very famous. Sometimes you're on a team. I had one student at BMCC who was incredible at making things move, but she couldn't draw at all, and she didn't even like drawing. But I'm telling you, I think she's going to have a good career anyway. So we're going to focus on other methods, but I wanted to introduce these tools to you. So please join me for a moment. I'm checking the time to make sure we have enough time to move forward. Let's leave the white arrow, go back to the black one. We're going to focus on the black arrow this semester. You could still work on that thing. It's a little less specific though. So sometimes surprises show up. Why is this so small? You know, some stuff's more obvious with the black arrow. If you need detail, it's going to be white arrow. I'll often try the black one first. Okay. I want today to get involved with making things move early. And I also want to get involved with the timeline beneath us down here where the frames are. So could everybody select this object and delete it? I'm going to use Command A a lot or Control A a lot and press delete. All right, I want you to picture something before. Oh, you know what? Let me show you guys something before we get started. I want to share something with you, and this is called Gertie the Dinosaur, and it's something close to my heart. want to mention something to you. When people talk about early animation, inevitably they mention Walt Disney. And it's very common to say that the first animation was Steamboat Willie. But it's not true. Steamboat Willie was the first famous animation because Walt Disney was a very smart man and a smart businessman. A lot said about his character, and I'm not going to go there. But he saw the one I'm going to show you and realized he could do it and make more money on it. So before we take a look at this, I want to ask you, has anyone ever heard of Little Nemo in Slumberland? So I want to mention something about this. Let's talk cartoons for a second. Cartooning started in the United States around the time of Benjamin Franklin. So we're talking about when we first became a country, right? Or insisted on being a country. Here was the idea. Before that year, in the late 1700s, a cartoon meant a sketch for a painting. So it meant something completely different. It was a sketch for a painting. But Ben Franklin decided, he produced newspapers, by the way. So he's famous for other things, but he also started American News. And a lot of Americans couldn't read. And he had this idea that if he had a lot of pictures, they would buy his newspaper anyway. So he invited these people to draw these really friendly cartoons. And that gave birth to ones you have heard of. You might have heard of Popeye. You know, Popeye started that long ago. It's really, really old. And some of them were gorgeous, but they used very simple English. And amongst them was a genius named Winsor McCay. So please join me on this tour for a moment. So first I want to show you where it all began. And that's just today that I'm going to do this. Now, Little Nemo in Slumberland was made into a Disney movie that has nothing to do with the artist I'm talking about. Earlier stuff involved the artist. I got to say a couple quick things about him. It's very tempting to say that he was a racist. I'm slow to say that because I'd rather say he was ignorant about race. And I just want to say something really quickly. Folks, bear with your very liberal teacher for a minute. The modern world has no room for racial ignorance anymore because our cultures are way too mixed and it's time for us to grow up. But, you know, you can't really blame someone from the year whatever who didn't know anything about races other than what his parents taught or grandparents taught or his ruling class taught. You could say we don't have room for that now. Because now we got media. We could learn about each other that live next door in the next village, and they couldn't. So I think this guy would have been wiser if he was born now. Anyway, so I want to apologize to anyone who might see a drawing that they find offensive. You know, can I say something to you? In my family, which is half Jewish people and half Catholic, if you're interested, Catholic and Jews, and also more than one gay person, we get into these conversations of how do you read classics when they always say mean stuff? You know, as a Jewish guy, I can't, you know, I read Shakespeare and at some point he's going to say some mean anti-Jewish thing, you know, or Moby Dick, he's going to say mean things about just about everybody. Being a woman, you can't read any classic really without being offended, to be honest, you know, any kind of woman. So it's like, I'm not going to just ignore the artists of history. I'm going to feel bad that they didn't have the advantage to grow up like we have to, like we should. That's my own opinion. Back to art. This guy was at the beginning of cartooning, and it's that gorgeous. There was nothing like it before him. He was just the beginning. I don't know how he could possibly think this way, right? Look how beautiful the graphic design is. Look at this moon. Half the moon's in the left frame and half the moon's in the right frame. And even though the character, Little Nemo himself, is on his magically walking bed, and you know time is passing, it's the same city. What a great way to tell that a moment has passed. You know, I think he's a flat out genius. Now, the reason I bring him up is not just because he's probably one of the best cartoonists who ever lived. He did the first animation. McKay's brother got a hold of one of the first cameras. I don't know how that ever happened because it only just came out. You know, people say Thomas Edison invented it, or his assistant, or the Lumiere brothers in France. But right after this guy got it, and he said to his brother Windsor, do a drawing, I'm gonna just use my camera, brief shot, do another drawing a little different, brief shot, do another drawing a little different. He didn't do 24 drawings in a second. He probably only did maybe 7 or 8, but they look great. I want to show you the first animation. And anyone who wants to see it later, I believe I included a link. Here we go. I can't believe this is the first animation. I mean, it's so good. I would have been blown away by much less. You notice how the landscape keeps moving though? That's a little weird. She's moving in as few drawings as he can get away with because it's so much work. He had to keep.
Are they using cell animation?
Not yet.
This is before cell animation.
This is before cell. This is the first animation. No one heard of a cell. They haven't even heard of plastic, right? So cells are made of plastic. So maybe not the first ones. I don't know when plastic was invented. So that's a good question. So I want to say a little bit about it. Let me just turn the volume down. So I actually saw a movie of him drawing this. I don't know how they pulled that off. Maybe they had 2 cameras. And it was really odd because he would do one drawing on a piece of paper, at least the movie I saw, and throw it on the floor. Then he'd pick up another paper and do almost the same drawing. It's just that maybe her foot was slightly lifted in this moment, say. And then he'd throw that one on the floor. And then he'd pick up a third one. And each time, in other words, he wasn't tracing. You know, the thing about that is the guy was a showman. And I think they lied about that movie that I saw. I think he'd already done it. And they just made it look like he was some kind of genius that could just photocopy in his head. And I fell for that for years. But in this particular movie, he's wearing a tuxedo and he's talking to people. He's probably convincing them to finance some kind of project. So he knew how to put on a show. But no, they didn't know about tracing. They didn't have light boards that would help you see the last drawing. And it's just kind of crazy. So we don't have time to watch the whole thing. If anyone who is interested, a film buff or a history buff or an animation fanatic, come back, check the longer one, see what you can learn about this incredible moment in time. And you know, one thing I want to see is the year. So give me a second. This is 1914, so we're talking about 106 years ago. If anyone's interested, Sigmund Freud, the most famous psychiatrist who ever lived, was writing his first famous papers then. Picasso had just painted the first Cubist painting ever done, maybe 2-3 years before this. Einstein's coming out with the theory of relativity. The world was changing on a spot. It was some crazy couple of years, about 100 years ago, including the dawn of animation. The reason I bring it up is, if I was going to do this with you, we'd have to draw Gertie 24 times for an animation this long. 1 Mississippi, that's about a second. 24 drawings for that? Whew! So let's show you how we're going to do it. Guys, before I launch in, does anybody have any questions or comments about Gertie or Winsor McKay or even Disney? You know, I have one more comment. Guys, we're here, you know, I don't know if you experienced my class this way. I hope it's a bit of relief. It's tiring, but I hope it's a bit of relief. Like, you know, the news it's a rough moment. But allow me to interject something real quickly, and it's going to combine some of our themes, but I just want to say something social. Could you imagine 2021 if these three things happen? A generous, kind president who wants to save lives and people, right? Doesn't have to be a genius, just has to be kind and know how to hire people that are smart. A cure for COVID, and the complete revision of the police departments around the country. Complete revision, right? However you look at that, those three things are possible now. They're possible now. So even if you're losing heart right now, think about it, how close we are to making those three things happen. God, what a party that's gonna be if all those three happen. Compassion in the White House, or compassion in the police department by completely revising it. More and more people of color invited in, you know, for example, you know, and cure for COVID. So if this happens next year, remember, I said so. Anyway. So I like looking at the past. So why do I bring it up? Steamboat Willie is the most famous early animation by a long shot, and it's racist as hell. Holy cow, it's scary to look at. I could barely stand it. And in fact, most early cartooning was incredibly racist because everybody was afraid of everybody. So whoever ruled a culture made fun of everyone they were afraid of. And you go around the world and see if what I'm saying is true or not. Just pick a country, look at their early cartooning and see how racist it was. With the ruling people, it's all about them and they make fun of everybody else, right? It sucks. But if you want to learn about history and animation, please look at early Disney. Disney themselves apologized on their 50-year anniversary when they released a DVD. And at the beginning, whoever was president came out and said, what you're going to see is going to shock you. And we're releasing this instead of hiding it so that we could learn from the past. It was the one moment I respected Disney, to not hide it, to be honest and say, this sucks, but we did it. So let's look. So I don't know. All right, guys, let's make a ball run out of air. So here's the idea. Let's say you had a ball, right? So it's basically a circle, right? And something hit it. And what's going to happen is it's going to go. Now, the thing is, the ball's not going to just lose air where it was hit. At some point, the air in the ball is going to change the weight of the actual ball. And it's going to be like my sound effects. So a basketball is going to deflate very different than a beach ball, right? Now, right now, I'm not asking for that level of specifics. And frankly, I just want it to look like it's moving, but think ball. All right, join me, please. I want you to get the oval tool and pick a color for the ball. Now, we've been doing it from here, but now I want to mention that the bottom of the toolbar also has fill and stroke. Now, I'd like it, we're going to ignore strokes today. So I want you to click on the fill color either at the bottom of the toolbar or back on the properties palette and pick any color that you feel like using. I'd like you to make a fairly large oval. Now, you don't really want that. So if you hold down Shift, it'll help you make a perfect circle. You could always Command Z, do it again, right? When you're done, if you want to move it, get the black arrow, click inside and move it. Okay, we're going to get all about the timeline now. So I want everybody to, I see concentrated faces. You know, I got to tell you something. I'm so glad some of you turn your cameras on, so I have an idea how to pace myself. Well, I can tell when people are focused and I back up a bit. I want to talk about this timeline beneath the stage. So I want to mention something to you. For one, let me just move stuff around a little bit here because my stage is a little crowded. Second here. This, give me 1 minute. I want to do something. Folks, this is going to be a bit of a hassle. One thing I think Adobe's not particularly good at is working with different size monitors. I'm going to stay in the screen setting that we have, but I just want to mention something for people who might want to try it on your own time. You know, when we went to change our workspace earlier, window menu workspace, there is this option called small screen. Now I'm going to ask you not to choose it, but let's see what happens when I do. The reason I'm asking is some of the features hide on a laptop. So I want to see if I need to do that. I don't really want to change to the small screen setting, but I'm going to try it first. Here's my small screen setting. You know, it's not bad. Give me 1 minute to be the guinea pig, and then we can make a decision together whether that's a good idea. Folks, this is what I'm looking for to help you make a decision. On the bottom, sort of on the right, is this cool slider. And if I slide to the right, all the little boxes in the timeline get big enough to see. If I take that slider and drag it to the left, do you remember in Premiere we were doing this? We were zooming in on the timeline, right? This is the way you do it in Adobe Anime with this little slider. If you can't find it, you might need to change your workspace. So again, if you're not seeing it because your laptop is small, go to the window menu, go to Workspaces, and choose small screen. If it causes trouble, we'll fix it later. All right, so I chose to zoom in a little bit to make it easier for people to see what I'm doing. All right. I want you to find frame 1. Now what you're seeing there is a black dot in frame 1. This right here is what I'm talking about, this black dot. Now, I want you to see something on my screen. Before you put the circle down, this is what you actually had. And I need everybody to see this because we can't move ahead without it. This is called a hollow keyframe. When it's black, it's a black keyframe, a full keyframe. That means there's art in it. Now, this is the deal. So keep your eyes on me for a moment. When you're doing frame by frame animation, well, like Winsor McKay, frame by frame means you're drawing every single frame. We're at 24 frames a second. So like I said earlier, at frame by frame animation, that means 24 drawings. So if I want to drop this pink magic marker between hands, and I want it to take a whole second, which would be a long time to tell you the truth, but let's say, I'd have to draw 1, then 2 with it about this high, 3, 4, 5. I'd have to keep redrawing it. Don't really like that idea. Ideally, I could draw frame 1 here, frame 2 here, and tell the computer to make the keyframes in the middle, right? Or the frames in the middle called tweens. We're going to do both. So today we're doing frame by frame, but we're going to do it in a way Winsor McKay would have loved, right? So join me on this. Make sure you got that black keyframe in frame 1. I want you to check your keyboard and notice the F keys that are in the top row. Now, if you're on a full-size computer right now, you just tap F6. If you're on a different, like a laptop, you might have just changed your volume, or you might have just opened iTunes, because the F keys are sometimes used by the operating system. If F6 isn't working for you, now what you want to see is a second black dot in frame 2. So if it's not working, it doesn't work on my computer, I have to hold the FN key down. Now some of you guys might know the FN key, right? There's one key, I'm on a Mac laptop and it's in the lower left corner, right? It's properly called the function key. Function key, and this is what it means. Function like the software, not the computer. So if the software says do this, do what the software says. Don't change volume, that's the computer's opinion. So some of you are going to need to find your FN key. So I'm holding down mine and I'm going to tap F6. So here I go. Now, if you look at my timeline, I got 2 keyframes back to back. Now, this is the same as having traced the drawing. You guys okay? Do you see 2 keyframes? Because if this goes well, we're going to rock until we get this. All right, once you see the 2 black keyframes, watch this. So I get my black arrow, and I'm imagining my ball got hit about here, and this is where it's first going to start to flatten. I go to the edge, and I bring it in barely, as little as I can, just barely. And then I F6 again. So if I need the FN key, it's on me. I'm going to hold down FN, tap F6. I look at the timeline, and I'm on the 3rd drawing right now. 3rd black dot, properly called the 3rd keyframe. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change that one by the same spot, just a little bit. Now, I just want to see if I'm needed out there. Anybody need me out there?
Professor. Hi,
Yes.
Professor. I have question because
Please.
my Mac it's borrow, it's touch, and I don't have those keys.
You don't have an
Because-
FN key on, is it a
Yeah.
laptop?
Yeah, it's Mac Pro, and they
Mac Pros have FN keys.
I don't know where they bought it because it's touch. They bought it like touch, and they didn't have keys.
Touch.
Next to the command button.
Touch bar. A touch bar.
Yeah, it's touch bar. I don't have those if and yeah.
Hold
They
down
change
the
it.
FN key, they should show up on the top.
Yeah, there's a.
No,
yes,
it's
you
when you
does
open
that.
like a different program, it's change it. That's
I'm totally at a loss on this one, guys. It's called a touch bar. What's causing her the trouble?
yeah.
I'll look it up after class, Sala. But you're saying, what should she do, Marissa? You sounded like you're familiar with it.
Because I think I have the touch bar too, and when I hold down the FN key on the lower left, they all show up on the touch bar. But I had to hold it down, not just press it.
Sala, is that working? She turned her mic
I'm
off.
trying.
Okay.
It's fine.
Is it it's working? Because I have
No.
another way for you if it doesn't work. I have another way.
No, it's not working.
It's not working. Okay. So try this. And everybody should know more than one way anyhow, right? So I want to show you, there's several ways. I'm going to show you at least one until we see what works for everybody, right? So give me 1 second here. Just want to check something. All right, I'm going to make another one. So I'm going to the 4th slot. So if you're looking at my timeline, I'm not talking about up here where the numbers are. I'm talking these little boxes. I'm going to the next slot. Now, I can right click if I have a mouse. I could control click if I'm on a Mac right in that slot, and it brings up a menu. What we're doing is called insert keyframe. Now, insert keyframe doesn't just make a keyframe, it makes one and copies the artwork. So I do this. That's the same as F6. There's the black dot. I come back here and I make a little change. I go to the next frame. I hold down Control. I click in there. F6 is faster, but this works. Control click, and I do insert keyframe, not blank, please. This one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make another little change. Now, first off, I want to ask Sala, did that work?
It's work. Yes, it's work.
Great. Listen,
Yeah,
guys, I want to show you one more way just in case anyone needs it. Look, folks, if any of you are animation majors, you need F6. You're not going to survive without it because it's way too slow the other ways. While you're learning, though, all the methods are fine, right? But here's the other method, which I never do. It's the insert menu on the top. Insert, timeline, keyframe. It's funny that they don't list the shortcut here, but that will also do it. And I look at the timeline, sure enough, there's a new keyframe. Okay. Guys, I am definitely going to be focusing on F6 in this class. I think most of you are probably on laptops. You might need the FN key. I don't know a thing about the touch bar. Marissa and everybody else, thanks for kicking in on that. It's something I have to look up so I can learn a little bit about it. Now, I want to get back to animation. One thing you might want to try with me just to get a taste, if you've got 5 or 6 or 7 frames already, this blue thing here is called the playhead. So if you drag the playhead to the left, that's frame 1. And you could literally drag it over the frames yourself to get a taste of how your animation's going. That's pretty cool. It's called scrubbing when you drag the playhead. So I'm scrubbing my playhead. Before we move forward though, can you make sure that it's over the last frame? Now, because it's been a little bumpy on the first day, by the way, don't feel bad, Sala, don't feel bad, Faik, about your questions. The first day is always slow on a new subject. It really is. No big deal. But make sure your playhead's over that last frame. And I want you to make one more because I want to talk about moving forward a bit. So I'm on my last current keyframe. and I'm going to use whichever system works to make a new one. So I'm going to hold down my FN key, tap F6. If I just left the program, so I just have to click back inside, FN F6. Now, I want to say something to you. In reality, you don't usually see one motion by itself, right? It's not going to really be. It might be more like, so if you want more than one movement, here's the only rule, right? They all have to be tiny. There could be as many changes as you want, but they have to be tiny because the eye needs to be fooled by this 24th of a second kind of logic. This is what it's going to see that fast. So I just copied mine, and I'm going to take this side again in a little bit. But now I'm thinking, you know, I think the top would come down a little bit. This side might start to cave in. And Disney would say, if this part squeezes, this part would have to open because all that mass has to go somewhere. So I might actually make this a little wider on the bottom. I'm not sure. So I just made 3-4 changes, but they were tiny. When you're ready, I'd like you to make your next frame. Now, I'm going to make several changes. A little here. This is going to start to fall down because it's not going to be as round anymore, which is going to pull the top down, right? This probably is going to come down too, right? And I'm going to go on. Once you start feeling this, feel free to move ahead at your own rate. Now, this is what I'm looking for. I want this thing to collapse. Now, if this was a big, thick rubber ball, it's never going to become a flat line, right? But it might become a bumpy little blob, and that's where we're headed, right? So I'm going to move forward with the same steps. You move forward at your own speed for a little bit, and I'm going to comment as I go. So I have 6 whenever I'm ready for the next round, and my goal is to make this thing flatten out, but I only go a little bit at a time, very, very little bit. So I was here. I'm going to take it back just a little, and then down, and I'm starting to imagine how this thing might collapse. And I'm going to use my F6 trick or one of the other tricks when I'm ready, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to have it actually cave in over here. So I'm focusing on this spot. But I'm making the rest of the what was a ball, the broken ball, kind of interact. And I move forward. And yeah, it's a little bit of faith involved in this. And people who live this as a career, they're going to use a system called Onionskinning, which we may look at this semester, which will show kind of ghost images of the last few steps.
I was going to ask about that.
Yes. You were going to ask about that?
I was going to ask.
You know, John, it's 20 to 12, but it's a good question. So I'm going to take a leap of faith here. You know, I got to tell you, John, if you ever become a teacher, part of the trick is what not to say. You know, so you don't swamp anyone, but I'm going to take a chance. So I'm coming down to the bottom because there's all these little tools at the very bottom of Adobe Anime. And this one here that looks like circles on top of each other is the Onionskin option. And I'm going to click it. So my mouse is down here. If anyone wants to try it with me, go ahead. You click it, right? And what it is doing is now showing you your current frame with ghosts of the last 2. So I could see how close they are, and it's kind of nice. So I could move forward now, go to my next, make my next frame. And now it's only showing me a little bit, and I'm just gonna back, oops, sorry, Command Z that, and I'll make some changes. If it's not showing you enough information, any of you who likes this idea, or Jonathan specifically, notice this. On the timeline, this is the bracket that says 3 frames. But I could drag it back. But now it's showing me way back, little ghosts of all the last steps. So I could actually see all the frames at once. A lot of people find it confusing. So if you use it, turn it on, turn it off, you know, as you need it. Does that help a little?
Yes.
Yeah. So onion skinning is pretty great. So while we're doing this, I want to say, if some of you going into animation at school are thinking, I'm going to change my major. There's no way I'm going to do this. This is taking forever. And I'm at a half a second about. But this is not the main form anymore. It's one of them. In my own 2D animation class, we cover 4, maybe 5 ways to make something move in one semester. This is the first one. So I'm gonna just check this out. It's not going bad. I kind of like it. And I'm just gonna look at the last 2. That's all right. And I'm gonna keep going until this thing really comes down the way I imagine it. And I'm gonna add something for people who are impatient, but also I just wanna mention, what if, excuse me, you started making larger changes? They weren't so microscopic. You actually made the changes twice as large, right? That's gonna feel like it's speeding up. Like more air is coming out. The thing's moving faster. So it's not against the law.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
can we make like, if we will leave the one block and then we can add the transition in another one?
Could you say that again?
Like, can we leave, you see in the bottom where you are in layer 1?
The
Yeah,
keyframes?
if you, the next one, if you click on next one, which is blank, and if you leave that one and do it in the next one.
Okay, let me be clear about a few things. These frames don't even exist. You know, when you look at a calendar and you're looking at the next box on the calendar, that day doesn't exist. It won't exist till tomorrow. So you can only edit objects. So you do have to copy the artwork, see that black dot. If there's no black dot, you can't edit anything. You can't draw, you can't change the drawing.
But if somehow like you don't have any one black dot in your entire enemy, then what we can do?
Nothing. You have to draw.
Okay.
There has to be a drawing. Yeah, I mean, the question you're asking me is almost the same as saying, can I animate without artwork? No. I don't know what that would be like. You know, it's a little abstract. So I want to get very concrete. So I'm going to move ahead at a clip just to be an example, and I want to see what we could squeeze in today in the time that's left. I don't mind. It was an intro class. I could do it this way, or I could do my F6 method, which is faster, and I'm going to move it quicker. So the end of my animation, because I'm making bigger changes, is going to feel faster. Like it started to lose air, sorry, and sped up for some reason. And if I continue making large leaps, it's just going to get faster and faster, which is something we will play with, maybe even tomorrow. So I'm going to get it down to a stage that I could live with. Now it looks a bit like a melted chocolate kiss. And at some point, these are going to fuse because they're the same color. And we saw that earlier today. I'm going to take this down a little bit. I'm going to take this down. I think this thing would probably widen out as that started to happen. And here I'm getting close to a second, so this is not a lot of animation. I'm going to just close that gap. And that's a little weird over there. I think I'm going to do it like that. See if that works out. So this is under a second. You notice it starts slower and then bloop at the end because I was making bigger leaps. If you want to try yours, hit enter or return. And I want to say something to you. If it feels like something's actually happening, there's motion, congratulate yourself. If it doesn't feel like a ball or a circular object collapsing, that's fine. Usually first day, my class, it looks like everybody's making a germ collapse kind of on the first day, you know, some kind of protozoa, you know, a single cell organism, and that's fine. That's fine. But if you get in the hang of how motion thinks as an animator, we've just moved forward. So I want to do something else with you, even though we have a very little bit of time. Did enter work or return to actually see it? All right. I want to show you one quick little thing that you could do. I want to see if this changes in the next few months or not. But we could create a temporary preview file. So bear with me. You know, I'd mentioned this thing called a SWIF earlier today. And a SWIF originally was a shockwave file. Decades later, then they started calling a small web file. And then after a while, people who weren't even working on the internet were using them, Swift. It's one of the export files, like an MP4 or a JPEG. Thing is, right now, we don't want to publish Swifts to put on the web because they got a very bad name over the last few years. But a Swift you make is always safe, right? There's nothing in it that's dangerous. So we're going to use it as a preview. Now, let's do a few things together. First, let's save what we did. So could everybody join me at the File menu and choose Save? Now, today, I didn't provide a folder for you, right? So if you want to save this to a neat place, you go ahead and choose that place. If you want to save it easy and then later on move it somewhere, well, you could just choose the desktop. That's what I'm going to do. I don't have a folder for today, so I'm going to save it to the desktop. Then I'd like you to look here where the name is, and you could give it any kind of name you want. I'm going to call mine Frame by Frame. Frame by Frame. And that's what animators call the method that we're using. Winsor McCay did only frame by frame. And the first 30, 40 years of animation were only frame by frame. That's all you had. Now notice mine is frame by frame.fla. Now that's odd that that never changed. That's a layover from Flash. This is not a Flash file, but it's still what it's called, .fla. This is an Adobe Animate file. And the only person who could open it is someone else who has Adobe Animate. So we're gonna need to do something about that. So you gave it a name, whatever, .fla, you chose a place to put it, and you're ready to simply click Save. Now, that file's sitting on your desktop or wherever you put it. Now, what about getting it to your audience? So I want to say a little bit about that. One thing that's cool about this program is it does great at making movies. And as we saw, it makes this new thing called HTML5 Canvas, which is fancy, and I have mixed feelings about it. And at a later date, I'd answer questions, or via email, I'd answer questions about it. But what about GIF? You know, I know some of you pronounce it GIF, which isn't really correct because the first word is graphic. It's a GIF. And you're used to those funny little GIFs that are all over the internet now, embarrassing little animations usually. The thing about a GIF is they make really nice short animation, which is a good thing. Everyone could see a GIF, which is another good thing. They do have limited colors, but you chose from a web-safe palette. And I mentioned that subject back when we were doing HTML, web-safe palette. So you don't have to worry about its color limitations. It doesn't work as well with photographs. You could do some stuff with photographs in Adobe Animate, but the color restrictions are a little tighter. Here's the biggest negative about what we're about to do. GIFs do not have sound, right? So again, like people who study animation with me at school, 2/3 of the semester we're working without sound. We're making a lot of GIFs. But as soon as there's sound, we make mostly MP4 videos. So I'd like to show you both, but today I want to start with just the GIF. All right, always make sure your file's saved before you export, and then come back to the File menu. File menu, Export. Now in this case, we've got some choices here, and we're going to choose this one. These are the two that I use most because I frankly put most of my work on the internet, and they both are very internet friendly. We're talking about animated GIFs right now, so please click that. While it's opening, I want to say that at school and even at home, I've had some problems with this window. And most of the problem is the window's just too big. I have a really large laptop, and it's strange even on my laptop. So it's something to do with the way Adobe sees your screen's resolution, you know. So I'm hoping that we find what we need. This is really rather easy. So if you look on the right side, it says GIF already, right? And there are other options that are not checked, and they're not animated. They can't be animated. So we're going to just leave it at GIF. The only thing that is a somewhat interesting option, is the only one that worries me, is where it says looping. Now my screen share is showing you how weird this faulty screen is, because where it says looping is hiding behind the button that says done. So I just want to say a quick word about it. 1, the 2 choices are loop forever or don't loop. Now your animation is under a second long. It's not very satisfying. You might want it to loop forever, right? You might want it to play once. That choice is yours, and you have to figure out how to get to that button. Once or forever. I'm going to go with forever. I also want to add that while I love this program, and it's very, very advanced, this feature has been historically glitchy, and the loop forever feature doesn't always work. But let's see. Let's simply click save. There's no other changes that we really need. Now, it's going to go right to the same location where you saved your FLA, that folder, the desktop. But right now, it's using the same name, which is good, .gif. Can I ask you guys a question? Does yours already say .gif?
Yeah.
Does anyone not say .gif? I'm just curious. If for any reason yours doesn't say .gif, you might as well just type it. It won't turn into .gif. You'll be fine. But I just want you to be conscious of what we're doing. I'm hoping it just says it. All right, save it. Now I'm going to minimize animate because I want to find those 2 files and make a point. Now I wanted to say a quick word about minimizing software. I said the same when we did Photoshop together. Some people click this little yellow button to minimize a program that's open. The only reason I don't like doing that, in some programs, it'll only minimize part of the program. You know, that one window. Leave other things out. You're like, what? This other stuff's in my way. So I usually don't use it. I prefer to minimize this way. I'll go to the menus, the animate menu itself, and I'm going to choose hide animate. I'm going to hide my browser, which is easier to deal with. And zoom, all this other stuff. This stuff shouldn't even be out. Excuse me for my messiness. Boy, you give me 4 days off. Look what happens. Anyway, I'm getting to my desktop, and you should do the same, or wherever you saved yours. All right, I got frame by frame FLA here. And if I wanted to work tomorrow, this is the one I'd double click, and it would open Adobe Animate. I'm looking for the GIF also. So, you know, my desktop's very messy. Oh, here it is. Here's my GIF. Now, I'd like you to find yours. Now, I want to mention a few things about how do you look at a GIF that's on the desktop. So, Windows people, you're probably going to know something I don't. But I just want to say this. Most computers I've been at don't have a devoted program that says, oh, open GIFs here. And in fact, on Macs, sometimes they open up in Preview, and Preview doesn't know what to do with animation. So it's really annoying, right? The safest, most reliable way to look at a GIF is to drag it into a browser, right? So I could open up the browser and just drag and drop it right in the window, you know, Chrome. Or I could take a little shortcut, drag it from here, find where I keep my browser, and drop it on it down there. And there's my little animation. So let me just repeat that just one more time. You could just get the browser open, get yourself an empty tab, find your animation, and just drag and drop it into the browser. It doesn't have to go up here. Just drag it inside. And this is what it would look like. Is it working? How are your GIFs? Okay?
I realized mine looks different from yours, and it looks different when I put it in Safari, but it's working.
It's working. So, but
Yeah.
you're saying it looks different in Safari than it did while you were in Adobe Animate?
Then Google Chrome.
Chrome and Safari look different?
Yeah, in Safari, it's white background, and in Chrome, it's like a transparent or
Little
black.
checkerboard? Like
Oh
little
no,
gray and white.
it's black, I guess, but it just.
Watch this, guys. I'm glad you mentioned that, Marissa. I'm going to come back to animate, and I want to point a feature that I didn't think we needed yet, but I guess we do. I'm going to export a new one. Same steps. I just want to point out this feature. It's possible that on some of your computers this was on. I assumed it was off by default. If transparency is turned on, you don't get a background color in your GIF. And the reason that exists is maybe I want to see the color of the website back there. You know, maybe I got an orange website and I just want to see that exactly. Then I could turn on transparency and the background color disappears. It's odd to me that one browser is showing you the background color and the other browser isn't, which is really alarming, you know, because you're likely to do this for the internet. So we're going to just have to keep our eye on. It probably has something to do with that. So I'm going to make sure it's not checked. And that should guarantee that I get a background.
Yeah, I think mine was unchecked.
That makes sense. You think it was unchecked?
Yeah.
Then it should have worked.
It's checked, and now I'm getting confused.
Okay. So just to repeat it, we want it unchecked, not checked. That's what we want. Don't be transparent. Unchecked. So I'm going to save it. And I just want to do one more thing. I'm going to close up for the day. I know I only have 2 minutes. If anyone needs to leave, you feel free to do that. But I want to show you something. Anyone who's not fried, you could join me on this. I want to just take Marissa's experience one step further. Anyone who wants to join me, could you just click on the background of your stage and find your properties palette? If yours has minimized itself, take a look on the right. You'll probably see this to open properties, or you can go to the window menu and choose properties. Notice when you click on the stage, this shows up on your properties palette. This is another color chip. Much more interesting. So if I choose a color, I want to keep it. So you click on the stage, look at the properties palette, pick a new color from here, right? Save again to keep your file updated. This is the FLA we're talking about, the original. File menu save or Command S. Now I'm going to export a new GIF. So again, we're focusing on leaving this off. And I'm going to remember tomorrow to say that. It's off. The rest I don't care too much about. My looping did work, which I was pleased. Maybe Adobe fixed it in this version. I click save. Saving it over the original. Same name, same home. It's going to say, should I replace it? Replace it? And I would say, yeah, go ahead, replace. By the way, if it's still open in the browser, all I'm going to do is refresh the browser, just like it was a website. So let me see if I left it there. There it is in the browser. I'm going to refresh it. Okay, guys, I want to wrap it up, and then I'm going to stick around. I promised Faik I was going to look at something, and anyone who wants to stick around is welcome to. Let me just check my chat. I've been a little chat negligent. No, only with the same chat. How is everybody? Hey, I want to say, some of you guys are very private, and I'm glad your class is remote because I'm a little bit more in your face in the classroom. Because I literally walk over to every person in almost every class and say, how are you doing? Or how's this treating you? And you have to answer, but now you don't have to answer. I hope some of you found this interesting. I hope I didn't scare any animation majors out of their major, but I do want to be honest. It is an exhausting choice. It really is, but it's worth it. To multimedia majors, can you get away without knowing this?
No.
Yeah, it's not ideal. You know, you'd want to know some kind of animation. I got known as a multimedia guy mostly because of the animation. I would add a lot to websites, so it was made my sites different, you know. Anybody have any questions about what we did today or about the software in general? No. No, really?
Sir,
Yes,
I
Khadija.
have one question.
Okay.
I just want to share my screen.
Okay, I got my fingers crossed. We've had such weird luck with it. I changed my options, and if your security preferences, I'm going to take a note to look, maybe show people a tutorial, because even after my class, you're going to have the same issues next semester. I'm going to try to post them on tomorrow's handout. All right, let me stop sharing. Khadija, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here? So, okay, I ended my screen share. You should be able to do it.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, that Professor, I don't have the little arrow over here and here and here.
On the bottom, that's true. Can you do me a favor and go to your window menu for a minute? Click your window menu. All the menus on the top. Go to the window. It's right next to help. Press that. And can you also minimize all of our, is this me? This is me, sorry. I want to, could you go down to Workspaces? Stay where you are and just keep going down to the bottom. Workspaces.
Okay.
All right, you're in basic. So the two that I was discussing today was small screen and essentials. Let's try small screen. Are you on a small screen?
Small screen.
Are you on a laptop?
I'm on laptop, but I'm connecting it to my monitor, so I can.
Oh, really? Very cool.
Yeah.
But you got your little arrows now. Do you see them?
Yeah. Now I can see them. Yes.
So, I'm glad you asked me, because now I want to tell everyone to avoid that workspace called basic. It's too basic.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So, hey, why don't you play it? Could you play your animation for me since we're here? Hit return.
I think I.
Or enter.
Okay.
Just click inside animate and play your animation for me.
Here.
Right here. All you have to do is hit return or enter and it should play.
Oh, I did it from here.
I'm not seeing anything right now.
Okay.
Could you click on your stage maybe and then hit return?
Share. Okay, now I think
You're still sharing. So I didn't need to see the GIF.
okay.
Can you take me back to animate? I want to do this for everybody so people are clear.
Okay.
If I say play your animation and you're inside the program, right? Just stay in the program and hit return or enter. There you go.
Okay.
So I just want to say something to you. That's pretty good for a first animation. You might notice your frame 1 is empty somehow, so that's a little odd.
No, I actually reinstalled everything because I didn't see this arrow, so that's why I think I missed some
bit.
information. Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch the video again. So
hey, you know what? You did great. If you missed anything, you're on it, so you don't have to worry too much. But thank you. Could you stop your screen share?
Yeah. When I stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Professor.
You're very welcome. Hey, listen, I want to make a suggestion, especially to people who want to screen share with me. First off, they're going to interview me because I'm one of the first people to do this at BMCC this semester since COVID. So I know the head of the department wants to debrief, he called it. And then he's going to ask me, he's going to say, what's better online and what's worse? So clearly better are the videos. That's just incredible that people could just say, like she said, I missed something, I'll just go watch it. What's worse is screen sharing only works about half the time because it's just a pain in the ass. It's just difficult sometimes. So I'm sure that if I walk people through it better, that will be improved. But I want to apologize to everybody for that. But if you think about it, in the classroom, you get to show me, but you never get to show the class, except occasionally, maybe on a review of some sort. But that's it for the moment. It's like, yeah, videos, thumbs up. Remote screen sharing, I'm not giving it a thumbs up yet. It's been slow. But that's partially, my own lack of understanding about it. Okay, does anybody have any other questions?
I got a random question.
Please.
Would your workspace size affect the size of that export window?
Not at all. Well, I see what you're saying. Maybe it will. You're clever, man. So your idea is like because it's overlapping, maybe it would behave better at a different workspace?
Probably. I'm spitballing. I'm running tech support.
That's the way discoveries are made. I respect that. I don't have the answer, but if you figure that out and discover something positive, I know you're going to share it with me and with everybody.
I'm hooked up to my tower right now, and I'm plugged into my television, so I don't have
workspaces. I have a way to prove it. Yeah, so I'll have to try that on my end. I just want to say, like, even in the classroom, this was a pain because, the projectors we use, have any of you been in the computer labs? The teachers get these, fancy projectors and the big movie screen. The projectors demand a certain screen resolution. That's the setting of the monitor on the computer. And then the computer likes a different screen resolution and Adobe Anime likes a different one. So no matter what I do, something's going to complain in front of the whole class, like every single semester. And like, especially with the projectors. This is even weirder because everyone in the room is a completely different setup. I have people joining my class on a phone. They're not doing the work, they're just watching and taking notes. So the variety is just incredibly weird. Here it is, the player wanting to me to update it. I'm not going to do that. Any other questions? That was a good one. I'm going to try to remember to look that up. I'm very interested in security preferences right now and the touch bar, which I know nothing about. Yes, Lorenzo.
Here's another funny thing. Since my MacBook is Italian, has a different keyboard. So the F6 or the F functions are in a different position.
Oh, geez. I hadn't ever thought about that at all. Your English is excellent, man.
Thank you.
But don't lose the accent.
Thank you.
You have to keep it forever.
They told me I sound like a Canadian.
I don't know. I know you're Italian, so I can't hear it. Now I know. He always says arrivederci to me, so I picked up on that early. I have this Englishman in one of my other classes, and he gets so much attention. I think he likes it. But I'm like, man, you're going to miss that if you start sounding like a New Yorker. It's like, you better preserve that. So listen, Faik had something he wanted to show me, but Faik, I'm a little concerned about the screen sharing problems we're having. So you want to try it one more time and then you'll show me what you have? We have to get past that hurdle.
Yeah, sure.
Now it's office hours, so I can be a little more patient. I do want to say to the rest of you, if you're feeling like hanging out or you're interested in any way, stick around. If you have to leave, this is office hours. You're never obliged to stay after 12 in my class. So if you do take off, I will see you tomorrow. We're going to do animation for a few days. It's most of what's left. I'm going to save at least one day to actually have us work on the final, like I did in the past, an assisted lab for the final. So I got to look over how all the dates fit. But if you enjoyed this, you can enjoy it more each day because we're going to go much deeper than we did. Faika, am I screen sharing? I think I am. No, I guess I'm not. You're not seeing my screen, are you?
No.
No. All right, so I turned it off. So Faika, it's your turn if you want to try it. All right. I'm seeing your screen. It's nice looking so far.
And this one I made.
I like the typography. So what is your question, a specific question or just a general?
My question was like, for this bar, I was just trying to playing with these things, like how to customize my header and then the rest of other things. But some of them I just got it by keep practicing on, like, keep doing it. And then, for this one, I just did like
fancy.
If you just do home and then if you go to history.
Oh, mine. Very nice work. Hey, remind me, what's your major again?
That's computer science.
Computer science. So yeah. You're pretty good at this. You want to keep these skills going. And, as a computer science, can I ask you a question? Like
Yeah.
what kind of job are you aiming at? Or do you already have like an idea in your mind what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I have a plan to go in data science.
In computer science, like in what area? I mean, are you going to do tech
As
support?
a,
What's that?
as a data scientist.
Data scientist. So,
Yeah.
you know, I would think as a data scientist, this skill could be really valuable.
Mhm.
You know, for example, this class, how we all go to IRAWorks to get everything. You know,
Yeah.
the strange thing about that was I've been doing that for years before the class was remote. When they warned me that the whole class was going to go online, at first, like everybody, I'm like, oh, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? And then I realized, you know what? I think I already did that. There's only a few changes that I needed to make because all my data was presented that way live every single class. So I was just by sheer luck, I was sort of ahead. So I think you're doing a great job. I really like your choice of fonts even, and I love the changing shapes of the photos. And you know, Faik, you're pretty heroic because you didn't even have a computer. You know, you really
I mean, I was just
Yeah.
working on this. I mean, complete 2 days, like full 12 hours.
Really? Well, you know, you did a lot of things beyond the call of duty, you know, like to be honest, there's a lot of ways to pass this assignment with much less work. Hey, but listen, let me say something before I forget. You did such a good job that I don't want you to show this to anybody with a spelling error. So you see the top where it says introduction?
Mm-hmm.
After the U, it's UCTION.
You.
See, it's I.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you left
Yeah.
out the C. But that doesn't change a grade in my class. It's just that it's so good that I think you.
I mean, I can change it. It's not like
it's easy.
so
I know.
much. And if I want to show you like my code, then.
Well, I know. So I want to say to anybody who's looking. Let me just see. Are there other people here? There are. So he taught himself to do the menu, and I know the way some of you think. So I know a few of the other students right now are like, "Oh, I'm going to do that." Why didn't he cover that?
And also, I mean, also for this thing, I was looking on W3 School, and I was practicing on this from there, and I worked a lot on this because
you wanted
changing
to.
this one
Yes.
because this, yeah, when I was changing this one, then the header disappears or something, like this font disappeared. So there were many.
Lots of problems. So
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons why
But
I'm
now
never
it's good.
going to do that in an introductory class. You know, I do teach, not at BMCC, but at FIT. I teach what they call intro to web design. So they don't do any video, they don't do any animation. It's literally all, they do Photoshop, but not as much as you guys did. They just do more code, lots of code. So we get very heavy with the menus, but it's always a disaster. And really, I really would feel like talking to the head of the department and saying, you know, it's just not realistic having an entire class do that in one semester. But
yeah, and my question was for this one, like this graffiti you see, like it goes out
of the
from
box because you're using a div, right?
Yeah, but actually I want to do it inside the header.
Right.
And then
which is always difficult. So
yeah,
I got to be really honest with you. And you know, here we are. I'm even letting this record for anybody who wants to see the office hours. They just might, especially with interesting stuff like this. But so you know, as I mentioned to all of you, I'm a multimedia guy. I didn't mean to be a multimedia guy. I started as a cartoonist. Then I got a degree in painting, so I actually have degrees in those things. And then taught painting for many years. But you know, I didn't want to go hungry, and I moved into media. Then after years of doing various media, people started to call me a multimedia person, right? It wasn't a major for my generation. You know, it didn't exist. So it just meant people like myself who do lots of stuff. But even now, as much as I like doing the web design part, it's never been my favorite. You know, so it's like I teach it to the level that's fun and useful. I want to get people like yourself a good head start, but you're going to pass me by. You're going to be much better than me, in my opinion. You know, I'll give you 1 year, maybe 2. And you're going to be better than me when it comes to web design because you're, you know, focused in that way on that. So I'm not going to troubleshoot menus, and I'm not going to troubleshoot anything to do with div, D-I-V, div, because literally it could take up to an hour sometimes to fix. So in my advanced classes, I got 25 people, all with the same issue with 100 different causes. And I'm like, oh my God, I need a new job. I think I'm going to go deliver newspapers and pizza. Because my own pay rate goes way, way down when my 4 or 5 hour class turns into a 20-hour class. But I do want to say, though, this looks great. And you know, the thing about the graffiti, the word graffiti that's coming out of the box, you know that it's a mistake. You told us it's a mistake, but everyone else is going to be like, how did you do that? I love it the way that looks.
Yeah.
It's got the box overlapping.
I mean, I like it too. I like it too. That's why I didn't.
It's not a problem. But div, D-I-V, div, is a big subject. For all of you here who want to do more web design, you're going to need to learn more about div. And not just menus, but a div is a box that's magic. And people use these boxes for 100 different tricks. Background images are often, so a div's a box because, for example, I need 3 things to move together. I want them all to float left. These 2 pictures and 1 shared caption. That sounds rough, right? So I put a big box around it called a div, but the div has no width, no height, no color, no border, right? So you're like, what is it? So what I'll always do is I'll give it a border so I could see what I'm doing. And then maybe I'll give it a width or give it a height. Like in your case, you might have to change the height of this big gray div back there so it could fit this in it. That's one possibility. But the menus require divs very often, and there's so many features, but everyone complains about it. The feature, it's slippery and it's weird. And the biggest problem is things sticking out of divs. And there's hacks that might work to fix it, and there's conservative ways. The list is too long and it's just too exhausting. I gotta say, it's an easy A, you know, what he did. You know, I wanna say something to those of you here though.
And one more question.
Just one last comment. Even without the fancy menu, he would have gotten an A on this because he met all the requirements plus extra photos, plus he went deeper with the fonts than I even taught. And the style is his. So really what I wanted was everything to work, the style to belong to you. You know, that's what I wanted most, and nothing to be broken. And at least 2 photos per page. And he's got more than everything. So even without the menu. But yeah, Faik, what tell me, what else?
I was like to say, as you see this picture, can I make like 2-3 pictures in this and as a GIF?
Yeah. Yeah, so here's the cool thing about the GIFs we just learned. If you would use the exact same code if this was a GIF. So, you know, he's got the IMG tag for that, right? IMG, and it says source equals, you know, probably images / just put the GIF in the same folder with your JPEGs. And go to the code wherever it says like, you know, wall.jpg, whatever that picture is called. Let's say it's called wall.jpg. And you made yourself something called wall.gif. That's the only part you have to change. The float will work, the border will work, everything will work. And theoretically, if you told Animate to set it up as a looping GIF, it should keep looping on your website. If you sold it to play once, it should just play once.
Yeah.
There's one reason why I get touchy about looping. Looping's cool for about 3 seconds. And then you're like, stop, just stop.
Yeah.
So one wants to be careful of what you loop and what you don't. But yeah, you should try that. It's very satisfying to do that. And what's more?
Oh, and also, I mean, thank you so much for teaching us for Photoshop, because I mean, I was fixing the height and width for these photos so much and so many times, because whenever I was like minimizing and maximizing, and I was adjusting all these photos, like.
You know, Faik, I gotta say, you're picky in all the right ways. You know, you're not a general kind of guy. You know what I mean? You're a very specific kind of guy. And they do look great. The colors look great. You know, Photoshop is some of the most fun available with this kind of stuff. You know, it's less pressure, say, than code can be. And honestly, even videos got many pressures, and we had an easy run. But believe me, there's 10 million things that go wrong with videos, and animation is really intense. I'm waiting for the school to get mad at me and just say, look, Ira, how come 1/3 of your class changes majors every semester and who takes 2D animation with you? And because it's hard, and I don't want to fool anybody and make believe that it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody likes.
Actually, I told to my one of my uncle, and he said, "Oh, you bought a new laptop." I said, "Yeah." And then he was just looking at it, and then he saw like this thing. I mean, as Creative Cloud, because he's a guy for to designing many things. So he said, "How you got this? It's so expensive." I said, "I mean, I'm a student, so I got it from my."
You know what? And even in July, when the free subscription passes, it's very cheap for students and teachers. So I also benefit from that. I don't even know what the full price is. I haven't paid it in years. You know, and luckily they divide it 12 months, so it's never a hell of a lot in a month. So I know people who keep it just for fun. It has nothing to do with any work they're going to do. They just want it. But it's a great deal. You know, it's the whole Adobe question is a weird one, because they could do whatever they want because there's no way out. Like if you're going to work in these fields, you have to have Creative Cloud. There's just no other way. There's too many programs that you could, oh, well, I know a way around Photoshop. Well, maybe you do. I know a way around Illustrator, around this, but how much of that can a professional do? Eventually you just break down and you give the monopoly your money because they own us. There used to be Quark, which was huge, and Macromedia, which was huge, and a couple other companies whose names I forgot. Quark, they just killed Quark. The company only had one program. And then Adobe InDesign came out. And InDesign rules every newspaper and every magazine and all brochures. It's all Adobe InDesign. And at first it was Quark rules InDesign, then InDesign got better. And then they were like, now you have a choice. What do we do? And then InDesign got better. Quark closed its doors. They just destroyed a business and everyone who worked for it. With Macromedia, they weren't going to destroy Macromedia because they were too good. They made Dreamweaver. They made all kinds of amazing programs, and they ruled anything graphics that had to do with the internet. And Adobe's like, we're not going to beat them. Let's just buy them. That's what they did. But now
also, Professor, about Audacity. I mean, Audacity. I was trying to download it, and I don't know how to do it because you know me. I mean, I just recently changed on Mac. So.
I know, and I'm not an expert, so I don't think I could help you. What I could do is tell you which handout had the most links. You know, because one of my handouts had read this for instructions, and you know, it had 3 different links for support.
I mean, I can download the file, but how to make it function it or save it in the Mac? There, I'm just being confused. Like,
so when you download Audacity, it downloads at something called a DMG, a .dmg. So if you find that DMG, you double click it, and then it opens a weird window where it says like Audacity, and then next to it's your applications folder, a picture of it.
Can I try now? It will just take a second.
Yeah, let's do that since you're screen sharing anyway. And again, guys, if you know, no one should feel trapped, you know, in case you know, you want to take off. Well, didn't you already download it?
I don't know. I mean,
probably on your computer. Yeah.
It will be on downloads?
Probably. So there, I see Google Chrome.dmg at the bottom, Sublime DMG. So you've loaded other programs, but you didn't do Audacity. So I don't see Audacity here. Could you just click in your search window for a minute? You see in the top right? It says search in the top right. Or either one. Yeah, you could click there. Could you just type Audacity?
I'm gonna go. Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Oh, my pleasure. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you didn't download it. Yeah, you might as well. Click it. It's going to take you online. That's fine. Or double click it. Just double click it. It's just going to go to the website. Go to download. See above that one, yeah, and Mac. And then scroll down a little. Recommended download, that's the one you want. Please ignore all that stuff. They make it look complicated. Just keep scrolling down. Keep going. Okay, can you back up to where it says Mac? Just a little bit higher. A little bit. Stop. You're going too fast.
Oh.
Keep going. Keep going. A little bit more. I want to see the next thing. Mac. Recommended download. Is that clickable? This big box that says Mac?
It's just only clickable on continue waiting.
Oh yeah, all right. Then we just got to find out where, here it is, Audacity 2.4.1 DMG. Is that the one? I think that's the one. Let's click that.
Okay.
All right. Now scroll down a little bit. It says Mac OS DMG. You see that under downloads, the second one after the green download. You're in the right place.
This one?
That one, yeah. So click on that. You just downloaded it.
Okay.
All right. Now you want to open downloads once it loads. All right. You see, this is what I was talking about. You see that little icon with the headphones?
This one?
Yeah. Drag it to the right over the thing that looks like a folder. Follow that orange arrow. Press and drag. Drop it on that little folder. Let go. Now you have Audacity. All right. You could close this window. Click the red button. Now in the larger window on the left side, it's called in the gray bar, click on applications. Nope, go back.
Oh.
And where it says applications, and look in here for Audacity. It's in alphabetical order probably, so go a little higher. That's it. That's your program. You double click it.
And I can just, I can drag it to my deck?
Yes, you could drag it to the dock. That's what I would do. Exactly. Now you're covered. That's it. Done.
And now if I open it, so
listen,
this will be open?
Wait, give me a second. I'm going to turn off my recording. Just give me a minute.
Sure.